Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ben and this is the Smoking Hot Confessions podcast. Hey family, it's Thursday, which means it's time for another episode of the Smoking Hot Confessions podcast. This is episode 9 of season 2, Living the Dream. In this season, I'll be chatting with some of the most successful barbecue entrepreneurs out there about the different types of businesses you can get into and what it takes to be successful. Have you ever had the experience where you've cooked something absolutely amazing and you really want to share it with the world, but if you come even close to it with a camera, all you get is a pile of dog food? Being able to cook something that tastes great and make it look great is a massive challenge, and that's where today's guest comes in. Today, I'm chatting with Adam from Primal Iron. Adam is a barbecue competitor, French-trained chef, and now works with authors as a food stylist. That's right, he now makes a living making food look good. This is going to be a great episode for those of you who are looking to make your presentation boxes look better and get that perfect shot for Instagram. So let me get out of the way, grab some fatty brisket slices and something cold to drink, and let's get into the world of a professional food stylist.
This is the Smoking Hot Confessions podcast with barbecue pitmaster Ben Arnott. How long's it been since your last confession?
Support for this episode comes from Harvey's Kitchen. Harnessing over 25 years' experience in commercial kitchens and catering, Harvey's has a burning passion for food and they make amazing barbecue flavour easy to achieve for all levels of barbecue. Their entire product range is handcrafted locally in Brisbane from quality ingredients, and they've gone out of their way to make their products easy to use with simple features like resealable bags. I've played around with their butcher's box and have found their preservative, gluten and dairy-free rubs and sauces to be top-notch stuff. The butcher's box has 9 rubs and 6 sauces in it. I love the ginger citrus salt on chicken wings and the Hoppin' Habanero hot sauce on everything. Right now, Harvey's is offering Smoking Hot Confessions listeners an exclusive 20% discount. Yes, 20%. All you need to do is head on over to harveyskitchen.com.au and use the code word CONFESSIONS to get your hands on some today. Once again, head over to harveyskitchen.com.au and use the code word CONFESSIONS at checkout for 20% off your order. Welcome to the confessional, Adam. The first question I have to ask is, what was the last thing that you barbecued?
Unfortunately, I have to say the last thing I barbecued was at Port Macquarie, and it was the last thing we presented was the beef brisket. Not to say I haven't eaten any barbecue since then, been around to the boys' houses and had some pulled lamb and pulled pork on the weekend. Oh,
fantastic. I have a little confession to make as well. That was actually the last time I cooked anything as well, except I bagged a whole bunch of it up and brought it home, and we've been eating it out of the freezer for the last couple of weeks.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely. Mate, I love the team name and the logo for Primal Iron BBQ. Can you tell me the backstory of your team?
Well, Primal Iron. So Primal Iron come about with a friend of mine, Damien Draper, also an ex-chef. We wanted to get into barbecue. Both of us had a really keen interest for it. And it come about because we thought, as chefs, we can bring something to the table with barbecue. And me, having worked in the American realm for a little while, thought this could be a quite cool transition. But we wanted to do something a little more than just a competition barbecue team that had a really sort of quirky name to do with barbecue. We wanted to create a brand that we could take forward and possibly do other things with, whether that fall into the food styling realm, specifically in American barbecue, or it fall into branding of merchandise. So that's why we come up with Primal Iron. So the name we came up with because we wanted to think of what it is we were trying to achieve. We're cooking over fire. We're using big, heavy iron contraptions to cook with, and we found that really primal. So Primal Iron was born out of going back many, many times over different names. But that's the basis of it all. So, and then the logo coming along, a gorilla. I don't think there's anything more primal than that. And you know what, I just think he looks cool smoking a cigar, and it seems to catch everyone's eye. So, yeah, that's a bit of the backstory.
Yeah, mate, that is one of the coolest logos that I've seen out there, and I believe you love it so much you actually got it tattooed on your body, didn't you?
Yeah, so I think the gorilla logo was a bit of a brainstorm between all of us, a gorilla being Primal, but I'd always envisaged getting some sort of cool gorilla face on my body somewhere. And when the logo come up, I jumped onto it and I thought, that's going on my arm, no worries. And within a couple of months, went and saw my tattooist I've been going to for 20 years and had it on my arm.
Yeah, it's very cool. I just hope you don't ever decide to change the logo.
Yeah, no, I'm stuck with it now. So
yeah.
I think a re-logo is out of the question.
Yeah. So, mate, you mentioned that your team name came about. The iron part of your name was to do with the smokers that you use. What actual smokers does Primal Iron use?
So at the moment, we're cooking on we're doing the majority of our cooking on a Yoda. So in this whole process leading up to it, we approached Yoda Australia and saw what we could do in the way of getting a Yoda up to Queensland, because the market was sort of flooded with reverse flow smokers. And we, after doing some research, having gone to the States, direct flow through smokers seemed be the way we wanted to go. And we're really getting used to it now and really loving it. The only thing we don't like is trying to get it on and off a trailer. So
yeah, that's much the same problem I have with mine.
Yeah, it's 550 kilos worth of a whole heap of hurt to the back.
Oh wow!
So, yeah,
that's literally twice the weight of mine.
Yeah, it's a big beast.
What is it, like a 24-inch or a 30-inch or?
It's a 24-inch, yeah.
Yikes! Wow. Yeah, solid iron indeed.
Yeah, serious real estate there.
Yeah. And so is that what you cook on at home, or is that just your comp cart?
So we share it around. It's currently living at my house. At home, I have a little Pro Q. I've just borrowed a Kamado to do some cooking on. And I have this old wine barrel that's been converted into a cold smoker, which I do a little bit of stuff in every now and then when I get an opportunity to.
Ooh, I've heard about them. How does it go?
It goes really well. We'll talk about some food styling a bit later, but I did a little project for Queen Vanilla where I smoked a heap of vanilla beans in there, and they turned out amazing.
Yeah, right. What would they go into?
So in a restaurant scenario, I would use them in like a custard. You could do a smoked vanilla custard, a creme brulee, a panna cotta, ice creams, stuff like that. Yeah. It's just they come up amazing, surprisingly amazing.
Wow, I love custard, mate. I can sit there and just drink it by the litre.
Yeah, and if it was smoked, it'd be even better.
Oh, definitely, definitely. So, mate, what was your introduction to low and slow barbecue?
Introduction to low and slow. I watch food trends pretty closely, I suppose, and have done over my whole career as a chef. I had my own place at the time when it really started to come to the forefront. And having your own restaurant gives you a little bit more scope to do what you want, I suppose. And I started to have these things creep onto my menu that were things like succotash, which is a Southern American dish, gumbo, and jambalaya, which I was doing in a very French way. But they all started to creep in onto the menu, and then from there it sort of snowballed into American barbecue and specifically Texan barbecue that just really intrigued me. And this whole cooking with wood and low smoking and stuff like that was it became quite an addiction quite quickly, I suppose.
Yeah, I think gumbo was a bit of a gateway for me into American cuisine as well. I'm curious though about succotash. You mentioned that before. I didn't realise that was actually a food. I've only ever heard that on the old Warner Brothers cartoons. Suffer and succotash.
Yeah, so it's a southern bean dish, which is like a stew. It's definitely a dish, and you can definitely find it in Southern America. It's probably more so Louisiana, I think, from memory. And it'll vary from region to region what you find in succotash, but it'll always be a stew based with some beans and probably corn. And a lot of the time they'll have okra in there as well. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Very cool.
Yeah.
So you were a French-trained chef before getting into barbecue. What is it about barbecue that made you leave French cooking behind?
Yeah, so I suppose it's all a life journey, really. What I was finding throughout my career is that I was overworking food, and I didn't realise that until I had my own restaurant, and I was putting all this effort into all these techniques and then the manicuring of food on a plate that everything just got a little bit lost for me. And when I found American BBQ, it all just made a little bit more sense. I was always heavily involved in using really good proteins, meats, red meats especially. Always been passionate about butchery. And I suppose that lends itself hand in hand to barbecue, especially Texan barbecue. And Australia, they have two. In my mind, Texan barbecue really suits Australian society because of the way we treat our beef and the way everyone in Australia loves a good steak. And I think that translates over once you start thinking about barbecue in the way the Americans do barbecue. It's all a coming together for a meal on the weekend when someone offers you to come around to a barbecue. It's just a different type of barbecue. It's not throwing snags on a barbecue. It's coming around and standing around a fire and watching your mate cook something exciting.
Yeah, I think that live fire is definitely a big draw card. We're all sort of drawn to the flame, aren't we?
Yeah. There's just something about cooking over fire that's, again, going back to the team name, very primal, and it just feels right.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to go back to something that you mentioned before. You were talking about overworking food and how when you got introduced to American barbecue, that all sort of simplified for you. That's a common theme that I pick up from a lot of people that I talk to is that, most of the advice that people have for the listeners out there is keep it simple, keep it simple, keep it simple. So when you say you were overworking the food, do you mean that there was, and I'm not a chef, so please forgive me not using correct terms, but do you basically mean there was too much kind of fiddling with the food?
Yeah, I think what I mean is that starting with a raw ingredient and changing it so much that it's no longer recognizable, and you've changed either the texture or the taste or the look of the product that you're working with, that it's unrecognizable. And sometimes I don't think that's really necessary. I spent a little bit of my career doing molecular gastronomy, and whilst it was really fun and interesting at the time, I look back on it and I wouldn't be able to go back and do that sort of stuff. I like to enjoy a product the way it was meant to be enjoyed.
What's molecular gastronomy?
So molecular gastronomy is something you'll see in some of the best restaurants in the world. The top 100 restaurants in the world will use a lot of techniques that are outside the normal techniques used by a trained chef. It'll be something where they may make a foam out of a certain liquid, or they may dehydrate and crumble a certain ingredient, or they'll aerate a certain ingredient, or they'll make something into a liquid gel, or there's many different techniques for molecular gastronomy. And I just think sometimes it just gets a little bit lost. I think it can be cool, but sometimes it's taken a little bit too far.
So just because we can do it doesn't necessarily mean we should.
Yeah, exactly. And the people in the world doing it, some of the best restaurants in the world who are doing it really, really well, have balanced the way they use these techniques, and they've done it really well.
Oh, interesting. Cool. So does your background in French cooking influence your barbecue?
Let me think. I definitely think so, yes. And where it influences my cooking in barbecue is the way I'll manipulate a product, in the way I'll trim a brisket, or the way I will approach trimming chicken for a competition, or the way in which I'll add flavour to the product. I think it definitely does. And also from a presentation point of view, I think it definitely does as well.
Well, trimming chicken is always a hot topic for competition barbecuers. How does your French background affect the way you trim a chicken?
Well, breaking down a chicken is something you learn really early on in your career as a chef. But there's also, making sure the breast is in the perfect shape of a breast. The skin is trimmed perfectly to that breast. The thigh portion, making sure the bones either end are squared off, so you have this beautifully square thigh component. And the same with wings, like deboning a wing. We did it earlier. Don't think it really worked out for us, but it's a technique that I used to add something to the barbecue. I deboned a chicken wing to see if that would work, if that was something we could use in barbecue.
Did you actually hand that in to the judges?
Yeah, I think it probably got a little bit lost because I don't know that the judges would appreciate that was actually a deboned chicken wing. Judges aren't told exactly what is in the box, and it presented with the thighs and then a deboned chicken wing. But, if the judges aren't aware of what they're actually eating, that mystique or that extra technique is a little bit lost, I think. Yeah.
Well, mate, don't feel too bad about it, because when I was having a chat with Andy Groneman for the podcast episode I recorded there at Burleigh, I think it's 16 or 17, he was talking about the amazing creativity that he's seen here at barbecue competitions in Australia, and he specifically mentioned a deboned chicken wing.
Oh, well, that's that makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah. I'll bet it does. So, mate, what's been the high point for Primal Iron, apart from Andy Groneman specifically mentioning your wings?
Yeah. Well, I don't know whether I can come back from that. I think Port Macquarie is amazing. We've only been competing a little over a year, probably only have 8 comps under our belt. We cook a lot. I cook a lot in general, being a chef who still moonlights as a chef. But Port Macquarie, with the current team form, we have about 6 members all up that we don't obviously all compete together. We had the whole journey down there, the whole journey back. It was a great experience. And then the way all our hand-ins come together, the teamwork that we put into it, the whole experience of handing everything in, it was really fluid. Everyone was happy, and we all worked as a team to create what we put in the hand-in boxes. And I thought, regardless of where we came, it was a great experience and really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, sounds like the interaction with your teammates is what really drives you. So what do you attribute such great teamwork to?
teamwork. So I've been chefing now for coming up 18 years. And that's one of the things when you're in a kitchen that really keeps on driving you forward. When you're in that kitchen for 14 to 18 hours a day, you have to be in a good team environment. And if you're not, you'll never enjoy working those amount of hours. So I attribute the teamwork that we have with Primal Iron to that. I think bringing 4 individuals together to have one common goal and being organised but not being too regimented where you don't have any fun, I think that's been the key to our happiness as a team, I think.
Okay, and do they have backgrounds as chefs as well?
No, so Damien didn't compete with us down in Port Macquarie. He didn't make the trip. The guys who competed with us, 2 of my really good mates, who are super passionate about food. We eat and cook together all the time. They always supported my career, and now that I've sort of stepped back from the kitchen, we get to cook together a lot. It's all been about American BBQ lately, but our families all get together and it's the men who go and do the cooking, whether it be we have Italian nights, Indian nights, all that sort of stuff. So that whole environment of us cooking together is just an extension of our day-to-day lives as friends. But the 4th team member we had down there with us, Dave Ashman from Barbecues Galore at Kiwana Waters, he was a true asset. His understanding of barbecue is phenomenal. After owning a Barbecues Galore for, I think it's coming up 30 years, he's seen every type of barbecue there is and seen the evolution of it all, which is amazing. And what he brought to our team was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I've seen some of his photos on Instagram of the stuff that he's turning out on his having a mental blank. The blacks I've seen
Traegers,
Primo,
maybe?
I was thinking.
The Primo, yep, as well. Yeah, he gets to cook on many different smokers, but I think he's really fallen in love with the Primo recently. So
yeah, some of the photos of the stuff he's turning out just looks amazing.
Yeah. And the beauty of owning a barbecue shop is he gets to do it very, very regularly.
Yeah. So what does the future hold for Primal Iron? What's coming up in the pipeline for you?
For Primal Iron in general, I think we're going to try and compete as many times as we can. But what we're going to do is, because we have excess members, we'll try and compete as many times as we can next year, but not always have the same team going to these events, but always having the same focus and be practicing with each other and separately to try and perfect the way in which we barbecue, the way in which we control fire, the way in which we present food as well. I think that's one of the major things, and just the way in which we work together as a team. So next year, we haven't set a calendar yet. My lifestyle with the amount of jobs and projects I have on the go, it's a bit hard to predict, but between the 5 of us, I think we'll compete quite a number of times next year.
This is Grant from The Smoking Joint, and I listen to Smoking Hot Confessions.
Big thanks go out to JAGRD Woodfired for helping me bring you this episode. Buying a smoker can be confusing. Something for low and slow, something for roasting, a pizza oven. What about baking? The JAGRD Woodfired smoker does all of these things. The question is how. First, the entire smoker is fully insulated. The firebox is insulated with kiln-grade bricks, and there are more on the cooking chamber floor, doubling as a pizza stone. The cooking chamber is then insulated with a 6cm or 2.5-inch insulation blanket. This means that the JAGRD can get up to 600 degrees Fahrenheit in under 30 minutes, sit at low and slow temperatures using very little fuel, and will even sit well under 200 Fahrenheit for cold smoking. JAGRD wants to make sure you have a very happy new year, and so until the end of December 2017, they're offering an exclusive discount for you Smoking Hot Confessions podcast listeners. Use the code word CONFESSIONS at checkout if buying online, or quote it when dealing with them direct for 15% off your purchase price. Head on over to jaggedoutdoorovens.com, spelled JAGRD, to learn more. Okay, we're into the second segment now, and what we're here to talk about today is food styling. So we're going to focus on that in this segment. So, Adam, I'm going to start off with a pretty basic question. What do food stylists actually do? What sort of projects might they get involved with?
All right, so food styling can be a number of things, but the main objective of food styling is to make food look good and appealing and appetizing. So where you will see styled food is in print media. So you think anytime you go to a supermarket and there's a display there and there's a recipe card with some brand advertising something, they'll have a recipe using their product. So that's what a food stylist job is to make that product look the best it can, but also make it the hero of that shot. So that may be hard when you're talking about mayonnaise, say, for example, and you've put that on a sandwich to showcase that being the star of that shot. You put that on a sandwich, you've got a protein, say ham and salad and stuff on that sandwich. How do you showcase the mayonnaise being the hero? You make sure that that shot is shot at the right angle. You make sure it's shot with enough light, focusing on the drips of mayonnaise coming down the front of the sandwich. So that's what a food stylist does. That's one example. But everywhere in society you turn, you'll see a shot of food somewhere along the lines. Food stylists can be involved in right down to things like movies. You think of the cartoon movie Ratatouille, for example. Thomas Keller, who's a really well-known chef, I believe was the brains behind all the food in that movie. He was hired to create traditional French food that would be shot in that movie. It's an animated movie, but it needs to start somewhere with a basis. So a food stylist can do things as simple as making a sandwich, or right up to being involved in a full-length motion picture, I suppose.
Yeah, that's cool. I guess I've never seen a James Bond movie where he sits down to a plate of food and you look at it and go, It could be as simple as, something in the background of a shot. You pick up any glossy magazine these days, there's always something to do with food. It's in every part of media, right down to social medias, you will see food advertising, whether it be advertising the local restaurant down the road who have got a picture of their pizzas on their advertising. So at some point, someone's come out and they've photographed that food. Whether it's a professional food stylist doing the food for that or not is another thing. Yeah. So is a food stylist always a chef, or are the two mutually independent?
No, never always a chef. Matter of fact, in this industry, it's a little bit hard to get into food styling. To do it full time is even harder. A lot of the time, shots you will see will come out of a commercial kitchen. And that may be someone who's just involved in food full time and they've made that their job to do the food styling. A lot of, say, your big magazines, without name dropping, like Marie Claire and stuff like that, I don't believe they all started with professional chefs doing the food for those glossy magazines, probably back in the 80s. But it's evolved that way, and I think that comes full circle with the popularity of being a chef these days. With all, the cooking shows on TV, it's seen as quite a fashionable thing to be a chef these days.
Yeah, it sure is. And if you become a chef, it gives you a license to scream obscenities at people too. So that's always handy.
Apparently so. Apparently so. Yes.
So what's the most interesting project that you've personally worked on?
So the company I work for, which is Red Candy Creative Agency, about 9 years ago, the two ladies who own that decided to self-publish a cookbook and had asked me to help them out with the recipes for that cookbook, which was a really exciting process because it was a concept they'd had, which was a food and wine matching book. They are very much creative minds who are involved in the hospitality industry, and they are super knowledgeable when it comes to food, but they needed help in the writing of the recipes and the making of the food when it comes to creating the photos for the book. And I was super happy to be involved in that, and it was probably one of the most exciting projects I've taken on with that company, which was really good.
Cool. So did you get an author credit on that?
No, I was credited as the chef on that. All the recipes in that book I was given a brief on and essentially helped write those recipes from the brainchild of the ladies who wrote the book.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
So, getting into the nitty-gritty, are you able to reveal any tricks that food stylists use for making food look good? There's a few tricks to making food look good. It's all about angles, it's about light, but a lot of the time that's left in the hands of the photographer. The food stylist has the job of getting the food to the plate or whatever we're presenting on at the time. But one of the things you've got to be really careful with is making sure food doesn't look cold if it's supposed to be hot, or making sure it's not weeping if it's supposed to be cold. Some of these shots can take up to an hour and a half to get for each shot. So the trick there is to make sure that, say you're presenting red meat that's supposed to be cooked, when it starts to go cold, the fat will start to solidify. So perhaps warming that somehow, whether that be with a blowtorch or something like that. Yeah, little tricks like that. Other things, if using little wedges of foam underneath the back of a product to lift it up so the angle is correct on the plate. Or there's some little tricks like using glycerine to make something shiny, because a lot of the time the food doesn't get eaten afterwards, just so when the light hits the product, it shines in the right way. So there's a couple of little tricks. There's probably a few more that we use every now and then, but they would be the main ones. It's more about getting the right amount of food on in a shot without it looking overcrowded, but also making sure the product that you're shooting for is at the forefront. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard about food stylists using glue to fix food in place. Is that just an urban legend, or is that true?
I think it does happen in certain realms. I haven't encountered it because a lot of the shots that I've been involved in, you haven't really needed to do that. I think people want to see fresh food these days, and I think it'd be too apparent if it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and fixing food in place, you can do that with other things other than glue. You're not shooting something that's leaning down a hill or anything, so it should always be on a flat surface, so it shouldn't be that hard to make something look stable on a plate.
So mate, can you walk me through a day in the life of a food stylist?
Okay, so depending on what you're shooting, I suppose what would happen when you get to a set. A lot of the time the set is quite a relaxed place. It'll be at someone's house where there's plenty of light to set up a big enough table. set up. The photographer will come in. They'll set all their screens up. They'll set all their photography gear up. This day and age, there's always a computer available so you can see live shots as well. I go to the kitchen. I get all my ingredients together. We map out our day in the way of what order the shot's going to be done in, and the way I do that is by selecting the dishes that I can put up at a faster rate. So if there's a roast on the menu on the shoot list for the day, it'd probably go towards the middle or the end of the day, because if there's a salad that I can do before that, we get that out of the way. I start going ahead and getting everything prepped. Once everything's prepped, we look at all the props for each shot. And what will happen from there is that the creative people, as a food stylist, as a chef who's doing food styling, you'll always have some other creative people. That's the company I work for, that really direct the way the client wants the photo to look. They've given you a brief. There'll be a mood board around as well. And it's a very collaborative effort from there on.
What's a mood board?
So a mood board is all the information that you get from the client. We want our food to be targeted at this market. We want it to be this colour palette. And then what will happen, a lot of research online, seeing other photography shot in a very similar style, other products shot in a style that you're looking to do, a whole heap of photos to sort of as reference points. And then you'll probably have some materials, as in like different types of cloth or different types of wood that we're aiming to get into the shot. So that mood board will dictate how the shoot runs for the day.
Oh, very interesting. Now, you mentioned before that it's quite difficult for people to get into food styling these days. Could you give us a bit of an idea of, if someone was really determined, how they could get into food styling?
So food styling, to get into, say it's a chef who wants to get into food styling, being creative and having a broad knowledge is key. Being willing to work with high-end products and sort of entry-level commodity-based products, and everything in between. And having the knowledge to be able to switch multi-cuisines and utilize their skill set that way. That's what you really need a strong background in. I think from there, if you really wanted to push into food styling, which is a really hard market to push into, there are some courses you can do. I know Gourmet Traveller are doing a course shortly, I believe. They're offering a food styling course, perhaps something like that. But getting in touch with a creative agency who has contracts with bigger food companies is always going to be your best bet, because there will always be a liaison to the bigger brands who will outsource their food styling. So I hope that answers the question. I think it does.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you. So it sounds like flexibility is key for people that want to become food stylists. You can't stay in your own niche.
No. Flexibility is definitely key. Having a good demeanour, having a really nice, calm demeanour helps, because the people, what you've got to remember, when you're food styling, you're catering to a customer's needs. You're catering to a client's needs, and you need to be flexible and be able to think on your feet and be open to their suggestions, and also point them in the right direction when they need to be. As a chef stylist, I don't have to do a lot of that. The creative agency I work for, they deal with the client directly. I've done a couple of sideline projects where I've had to deal with the client directly, but you've really got to be a passionate person who is outgoing to be able to do that sort of work.
Right. Cool. Okay, so if I can bring it back to barbecue again now, how does being a food stylist help your barbecue, and do you find that Primal Iron gets amazing presentation scores?
All right. So how food styling has helped our barbecue is, I think, our hand-in boxes are getting better each time, and I think that comes with an eye for detail. I think that comes with an eye for symmetry, because symmetry is really important. It's really pleasing to the eye to open a box, I believe, and see symmetry and see perfect shapes. I think evenness is key to any barbecue. When I look at a hand-in box and don't see brisket cut the same way, different thicknesses or different lengths or not quite square in the box, that's when I think that doesn't look quite as appealing. So I think my food styling background has probably helped there, just in placement and eye for detail. Like right down to a glaze on a chicken, seeing the black speck on one thigh that isn't on the other thighs and trying to, make those changes.
Yeah, right. Speaking of that chicken, I was actually your neighbour at Barbecue Wars, and I saw your chicken when it came off the smoker. Man, it was just sensational. How did it do?
We didn't do as good as we'd hoped in chicken. We were a bit bold, and again, we experimented a little bit. We put crispy chicken skin in our box. Was delicious, I thought. But there was a bit of controversy with that being allowed or not being allowed. It was ruled that it was a legal thing to put in the box. But I think by that time, it had done its damage by then, I suppose. Our chicken itself was amazing. Again, I think uniformity was spot on. Chicken isn't one of the cooks that I take care of, but when it comes to presentation, that was one of the things that I took charge of, I suppose, in putting everything in the box, just to try and make sure everything is symmetrical and lined up perfectly. But everyone gets a say in that. Every one of our team members is standing there ready with paper towel or take a overhead photo to go, okay, look at this photo, they're not quite square. So...
Oh, that's a good trick. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. So taking that overhead photo is, if you've got the hands, it always helps.
All righty. Now, I just want to clarify before, I didn't quite make out what you said. Did you say that the crispy chicken skin was illegal or legal?
No, it's legal to do.
Okay.
Yes. It's... I believe the judgment, there was a bit of back and forth on the ABA page about the crispy chicken skin, which was our team. We only used the smoker to cook it. There was no deep frying. There was nothing other than the heat from charcoal that made our skin crispy.
Mm.
But by the time it had been debated, I think the damage had been done.
Mm.
So,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you'd obviously separated the skin from the piece of chicken and then cooked the skin separately.
Yeah. So we cooked skin on chicken thighs, and then we also had excess skin that we made some little crispy skin squares out of. So,
sounds very cool to me.
Yeah. I think it just got a little bit lost in the box. Having looked at the box hand in a number of times now, I think if we'd left those out with the 6 perfect thighs in the box, it may have done better. But flavour was definitely bang on, and it is We know what we're getting ourselves into when we compete in barbecue. It's open to interpretation. It's open to people's palates. It's open to what people find appealing, and different people find different things appealing. So the most we can hope for in these situations is to be happy with what we present. And we had a great time, and we were super happy with what we presented.
Mate, that's the most important thing. And a lot of the time it does come down to the luck of the draw of who's on the table that you happen to get your box put on.
Yeah, exactly.
So overall, as a career, I guess, how would you rate being a food stylist?
It's one of the things I'm most passionate about because it varies so much. Like the products I get to work with, and I don't food style each and every week. It's sometimes I can go months without doing a food styling gig, but when I do them, the products I get to work with may vary from a processed avocado product to a high-end cut of steak. It varies that much, or it may be a processed salad dressing or something like that I have to make different salads from and be creative in that way. It really is a fun thing to do. The days are sometimes quite long. The people I work with are amazing as well. They're really like-minded. They are super positive people, and that is what you get when you work with creative types, I suppose.
You're listening to the Smoking Hot Confessions podcast with barbecue pitmaster Ben Arnott.
Local products don't get much more local than Ministry of Smoke's Smoking Woods. An Australian family-owned company specialising in native hardwoods as well as fruitwoods, Rod has never revealed his sources of his timber. But they do come from premium New South Wales and Queensland timber regions. I exclusively use Rod's products with Smoking Hot Confessions, and my favourites are his ironbark and applewood. And his Gidgee lump charcoal is killer. Most exciting, Rod now produces his own range of pellets, including red wine oak barrel and ironbark. These can be used in pellet grills and in smoker boxes in other types of barbecues. They're also great in the uni pellet pizza ovens for a delicious combination of smoke and pizza. As an added bonus, all his pellets are sold in food-grade pails, so they're great for commercial operations as they can be repurposed. You can reach out to Rod on Facebook. Just search for Ministry of Smoke and shoot him a message. Okie dokie, Adam, we're now into segment 3, which is, of course, our listener question time, and we've got some fantastic ones lined up for you today. So let's get stuck right into it. Are you ready?
Yeah, super ready.
All right, let's hit it.
Hi, Ben. It's Rowan from Tasmania, Rowan Slow Barbecue team. Question for Adam, food styling. Just wondering what he thinks about the old parsley in the box and how we present the boxes, whether or not, he likes the kale better or the parsley, or whether he's got any other suggestions as to how he thinks it could be done better. Cheers. See ya.
All right. Hey, Rowan, thanks for the question, mate. Much debated recently, I think, this one. So I'm going to say I'm pro parsley in this situation, and I'll give you a reason why. Kale, for me, doesn't create a really even bed to lay your protein on in the box. At least with curly parsley, you can really trim that down to create quite a good bed underneath, which is really even and springs back. And what that helps you with in barbecue, in my mind, is that it'll help all the proteins stand up the same. So with kale, I find you'll find that putting something like a chicken thigh or a lamb cutlet in, one will sit up, one won't. I think with parsley, you create a more even playing field. And what parsley, I think, also does is hides all those little drips of sauce once you've brushed over your protein to give it that last-minute sheen. I think it hides those little drips of excess sauce a little bit better. As for offering a suggestion for how it could be done better, I've heard a lot of chatter about just going to plain boxes with nothing in it. I think that's going to be just too messy. I think for me, from that food styling standpoint, I don't want to see like drippy sauces in the bottom of a white styrofoam box. I think the parsley looks really nice and even and gives the eye something to gauge the edge of the box and also the edge of the meat by. So I hope that answers it. Thanks.
Yeah, good response there, Adam. Someone once said to me that they were worried about putting hot meat on kale because that'll make the box smell funny. Have you ever found that?
I think you'd be hard pressed to put. We all know how hot the meat is that we put into the boxes. It's not boiling hot as if it's come out of a 180-degree oven. I think you'd be pretty hard pressed to wilt kales to a point where it would smell. Not that I think kale really smells when you fry it anyway, but yeah, I think you'd be pretty hard pressed to have that effect.
Hi guys, it's Dion from Gloucester in the North Coast, New South Wales. Hi Adam. Basically, what's the most valuable tool you have in your toolkit for full food styling? Thanks, mate.
Hi, Dion. Mate, the most valuable tool in the kit, I think, is having multiple pairs of gloves that you can change between, often putting 2 or 3 pairs on at a time. So when one gets dirty, you can just rip a pair off. I think having someone standing by with a roll of paper towel is really handy. But most important tool for the food styling, if we're using food styling in a barbecue sense, that is maybe a set of tweezers that you can get in there and pick those little black specks off that may be a little bit stray, or when something's not quite right with the parsley. I think that would be, one of the most handy things to use for barbecue and food styling, from a food styling standpoint, that is. But if you're talking about food styling from the standpoint of styling food for a commercial use, I think maybe just a good sharp knife to make clean lines, and also chef tweezers are a really handy thing. So when you've got some nice micro herbs you're trying to garnish with, you can move them really easily.
How are chef tweezers different from regular tweezers?
So chefing tweezers are quite long and thin, you'll find. So they're almost like holding a pair of chopsticks that's joined. Let's put it that way. So they're easier to handle. They fit in the hand really, really easily, and you'll find a lot of high-end restaurants use them these days to garnish with.
Oh, interesting.
Hi, this is Roll from Singleton. I'd like to ask Adam a question. Adam, what is the most difficult food to make look good? Thanks.
Hi, Wal. So most difficult food to make look good. Let's talk from a barbecue aspect first. I think anything pulled pork, pulled beef, pulled lamb, pulled chicken, I think any of that is hard to make look good. And that's, for me, I don't find it visually appealing, but I can see how it's visually appealing when it's dripping in sauce and it looks really umptuous. But when you're talking about food styling, one of the things I find hard to make look good from a food styling aspect would be something like fried eggs, or anything oily is a little bit hard to make look good, because the oil tends to want to pool and not pool where you want it to pool. So, yeah, I think they would be probably some of the hardest things to make look good. Cheers, Will.
Hi, this is Kevin from Sydney. Hi, Adam. My question is, what inspirations do you draw upon for your food styling? Thank you.
Hi, Kevin. So inspirations, mate, drawing on for food styling. First and foremost, it depends what I'm styling. It will be a little bit of research on what it is that I am styling for the day, make sure I know the background of the product, and then try and draw inspiration that's warranted there, whether it be the type of cuisine or how the product is handled. But a lot of the time, the inspiration comes from the mood boards, which I talked about earlier on, which is how a photo shoot for food styling is set up. The directive given from the people hiring you to do the job. So that's where you draw your inspiration. That could be drawing from the colour palette. That could be drawing from the product that you're using in the way the texture, the colour, flavour really doesn't come into inspiration, but you've also got to think, does that suit? Is someone going to look at that and say that that piece of ham is going to taste weird with that soya sauce? So drawing inspiration from the product itself to find like ingredients or ingredients that are going to match it. Thanks.
Oh, hey, Ben. This is Mike from Brisbane. Adam, I was just wondering, what food styling tips can you give for any comp barbecuers out there who are looking to up their presentation scores within, obviously, the limitations of the competition barbecue presentation rules? Thanks, mate.
All right, mate. So from a food styling aspect for barbecue teams, things that I notice are symmetry. Symmetry in the box, I think, is key. I'm slowly learning not to overcrowd the box as well, which is something I probably should have learned long ago from not overcrowding a plate of food. And definitely making sure the sauce doesn't pull in any part of the protein that you put in there, but also making sure it glistens from the sauce as well. I think anything dry that you put into the box is going to look that way when the judges open the box. So I think just making sure in some way that you make the protein shine, whether that be with a little bit of the animal's fat rubbed over the dry rub, or that could be the sauce that you're going to coat the product in. I hope that helps.
Would I always mispronounce this, au jus? Would that suffice?
Yeah, the au jus from your cooking liquid. I think that's the perfect way to moisten a product, and having that just before it goes into the box. You're talking about slices of brisket. I think dipping them through the au jus from the leftover injection and the fat that's rendered off your brisket, I think that's the perfect medium to put in there. Not only are you not adding a product that doesn't really belong to the brisket, but you're enhancing the visual appeal.
This is Andy Groneman, and you're listening to the Smoking Hot Confessions.
Alrighty, Adam, before we put this episode to bed, what would be your 3 top pieces of advice for people looking to get into food styling?
All right, 3 top pieces of advice. Being well-rounded when it comes to cuisine and really versatile when it comes to ingredient knowledge. I think that's key. I think having a really good attitude towards a client's needs is paramount. I think you really need to go into any food styling arrangement knowing that this isn't about you, it's about the client's needs and achieving that no matter what. And the third piece, if you're going to get into food styling or trying to get into food styling, is just trying to align yourself with people that are like-minded. Trying to align yourself with people who are taking photos of food regularly, who are seeing different aspects of the food industry really regularly. And sometimes that might be going to a bigger company who produce lots of different products that, use food stylists regularly. So I think those 3 bits of information would be key to trying to get into food styling. It is a really hard market to crack.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Those are top tips. I like the last one about the importance of networking and strategic relationships too. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I think networking is key in any point in life. I think if you don't network, no matter how good you are at something, you're always going to get left behind.
Okie dokie, Adam, the show is now yours, mate. Please give any shout-outs and thanks that you'd like to, and tell the listeners where they can track you down.
Awesome, guys. So thanks for listening today, guys. A couple of shout-outs to start with. My employer and major meat sponsor, Prime Cut Meats Queensland. So if you're ever up this way in the sunny state of Queensland, check us out. If you're looking for meat for a comp when you're up this way, don't hesitate to call Prime Cut Meats and ask for Adam. Next one will be Red Candy Creative Agency. Since I've started food styling, these lovely ladies at Red Candy have been the ones who have been my inspiration and allowed me to grow as a food stylist. I'm going to put a shout out to my own sauce company called Devil's Pantry. Check us out on our socials. You'll find us on Facebook, Devil's Pantry, and also on Instagram. If you just look for Devil's Pantry on there, you'll see us pop up. Also, Primal Iron. I can't forget the lads of Primal Iron. So you've got Damien Draper, Matthew Redman, Carl Mitchell, and Dave Ashwin from Barbecues Galore at Quina Waters. If you're ever up on the sunny coast, make sure you drop in and see Dave. There isn't anything he doesn't know about barbecue. All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Mate, just before you go, don't forget to tell us how we can track you down on the internet.
All right. So Primal Iron's pretty easy to track down if you look up Primal Iron BBQ on Facebook and Instagram. And also check out my sauce company, Devil's Pantry. We're on Insta and Facebook. If you just search Devil's Pantry, we'll pop up and you'll see us there. Check out for our stockist in Queensland, Victoria and New South Wales.
That's beautiful, mate. I have tried those sauces and they are just delicious. So thanks so much for coming onto the show and revealing the world of food styling to us all. I've really enjoyed our chat. I'm sure the listeners have enjoyed it too. So thanks so much for all this, and I really look forward to seeing you again at the next comp.
Thanks, mate. I had a great time and look forward to seeing you there.
Well, family, there you have it, the confessions of a professional food stylist. I expect to check into Facebook and Instagram and see all your incredible new photos of your barbecue from here on out. Adam is a true professional, and you can check out all his work by following him on Primal Iron BBQ on Facebook and Instagram. Coming up next Thursday, Aussie barbecue legend and all-round good guy Gus from Gus Face Griller is stepping into the confessional. He's going to take us through his life as a barbecue blogger and all the opportunities that's opened up for him. Take my word for it, the range is wide and varied, and it's a ripper of a story. Big thanks and much gratitude go out to this episode's sponsors, Harvey's Kitchen, JAGRD Woodfired Smoker Ovens, and Ministry of Smoke. Their support makes this project possible. I've put their links in the episode description, so please click on through to their sites to claim those awesome offers for you loyal Smoking Hot Confessions listeners. If you have a message that you'd like included in this podcast to get out to a barbecue mad audience, send me an email directly at ben@smokinghotconfessions.com and let's have a conversation. Shoutouts also have to go to those who called in and left questions for Adam. Dion, Kevin, Linda, Matt, Mike, Rowan and Wal. I found it really interesting to find out what you're thinking, and Adam had a great time answering all your questions too. Finally, however you listen to this episode, please make sure you subscribe and leave a review. This way, the episodes will be delivered to more people's devices by Chinese submariners as they take Harold Holt on his undersea adventures. Until next time, take care of each other and keep on queuing.
Thanks for listening to the Smoking Hot Confessions podcast. Head on over to smokinghotconfessions.com for recipes, tips, and Ben's own confessions.